It's a beast. Hello everybody, welcome back to Docman Sound Music. In this video, I'm going to talk about 3 steps to gaining mastery over the diminished scale. The first step to mastering the diminished scale is to understand the construction of the scale and how it's related to dominant and diminished chords. Unlike the major scale, the diminished scale contains half steps in between every other note. They often refer to 2 different diminished scales depending on whether you're starting it with a half step or a whole step. Now let's take a look at some common fingerings for the diminished scale. So this is an A dominant diminished, meaning I'm starting with a half step. And what's cool about this is that it repeats every minor third, so you can play it here as well. Or here. The other shape is this one. This moves diagonally. There's only 3 diminished scales. This is because the scale is symmetrical. Each diminished scale is shared by 4 different keys. For example, C, E flat, F sharp, and A all have the exact same diminished scale. Furthermore, each position on the guitar has the same exact fingering and repeats every 3 frets. The only difficult part is to figure out which diminished scale to play over a given dominant chord in a tune. Let's explore how to do that. Here's my A7. You can see that we've got this half step above the root A, right? And that's what tells you where you are. Here is our A7 with a root on the A string. Now we want to know of the diminished scale that would go with this. Here's our root. And this tells us where we are, right? Because here's our root, we've got the half step above the root. You can also see that you've got this natural 6. So this dominant chord would have a natural 6, which is also called a natural 13. And as we said, it has a half step above the root, which is also called a flat 9. And it also has a sharp 4. So that's this sound. It's got a minor third and a major third too. And the minor third is also called a sharp 9. So that's step 1. Get to know the scale, the shapes of the scale, and associate them with the dominant chords. And also you should associate them with the diminished chord. The diminished chords are located a half step above the dominant chords. Step 2 is to start to make the connections when you use this in, for instance, a 2-5-1 progression. So let's look at an example. A 2-5-1 in D major. So I like the diminished going to the major because it's got an approach built in to the major third from a half step above. So let's look at a 2-5-1. It's E minor 7, A7 to D major 7. So a typical line might start with an arpeggio, come down the Dorian scale, E Dorian, or you can think of that as D major, right? Now we're going to go into our diminished. Let's look at it in the context of a song. Let's say we're doing All the Things You Are. F minor, B flat minor 7, E7, D flat major 7, contained within the diminished scale is the tritone substitute. You can start with the A dominant arpeggio and go into the tritone, which would be the E flat 7. Here's a 5-1 lick in D major that uses several different diminished triads. Because the diminished scale is symmetrical, it's really great for playing patterns. So far we've talked about the diminished scale, but I want to take a minute to talk about the diminished arpeggio. The diminished arpeggio works really well leading into a minor chord. Alright, so hopefully this video gave you some good ideas for getting started with the diminished scale. And of course, I haven't conquered the diminished scale. It's a beast. Have fun, keep jamming.